It was supposed to be another routine system scan mission, the kind the High Council handed out when they wanted someone busy and far away. Trigis couldn't shake the feeling that this assignment was punishment for daring to disagree with them. "Helix," he said, stifling a yawn as the ship's AI chimed in response. "Yes, Trigis. Anything of interest in this system?" "Not at present. Several probes have yet to report." Trigis leaned back in his chair and exhaled. Of course they haven't. Why would the Council ever make things simple? Before he could finish the thought, Helix cut in, its tone sharpened by urgency. "Warning. Unidentified ship approaching." Trigis straightened, confusion replacing his boredom. There were no known species in this region of the galaxy, certainly none bold enough to confront a Council vessel. Helix spoke again. "Incoming voice transmission." "Play it," Trigis said, expecting static or a failed hail. The voice that followed was calm, authoritative, and entirely unexpected. "Liatzal vessel, you violate the Pluto Accords. Power down your ship and prepare to be boarded." Trigis stared at the console. His small science ship wasn't built to fight, and it certainly wasn't built to run. The unknown vessel was closing fast. Moments later, sensors flared. "A shuttle has detached from the hostile ship," Helix reported. "Estimated time to arrival, 3 minutes." So that was it. Whether he liked it or not, he was about to meet them. The 3 minutes stretched into an eternity. Then came the dull clamp of docking locks, followed by the hiss of the airlock cycling open. A humanoid figure stepped onto the bridge, clad in black armor, a plasma rifle already trained on Trigis. "Step away from the consoles," the figure ordered, hands where I can see them. Trigis complied. He had no other choice. 3 more armored figures entered behind the first. 2 received a silent nod and immediately split off, moving down the corridor to secure the ship. The third lingered as the leader spoke again. "There's an AI on board," he said. "Contact the captain. Have an engineering team sent to secure it." The third Marine left without a word. The leader turned his attention fully back to Trigis. "Liatzal, turn around. Please keep your hands visible and walk backward toward me. Try anything, and you won't leave this ship with a head." Trigis swallowed and obeyed. As he reached the armored figure, strong hands seized his wrists and snapped restraints into place behind his back. The cold metal closed with a final, decisive click. Whatever the Council had sent him out here to find, it had seen him first. Trigis was marched through his own ship, the restraints biting into his wrists as armored figures guided him toward the airlock. The familiar corridors felt foreign now, occupied by an authority he did not recognize. The shuttle ride was silent, the stars stretching and settling as they crossed into the shadow of the larger vessel. When they docked, the scale of the ship stole his breath. This was no rogue craft. The hangar was immaculate, organized, alive with disciplined motion. He was escorted through multiple checkpoints, each one more advanced than the last, until they reached a command chamber lined with unfamiliar symbols and quiet humming consoles. At its center stood a humanoid without a helmet. Trigis froze. The figure was unmistakable. Pale skin, forward-facing eyes, smooth features unmarked by Liatzal traits. A face Trigis had only ever seen in sealed historical archives. "Human, remove his restraints," the human said calmly. The clamps released. Trigis rubbed his wrist but did not take his eyes off the figure. "That's not possible," Trigis said. "Humans were wiped out at the end of the rebellion." The human tilted his head slightly. "No, we were recognized." Trigis frowned. "The Council declared your extinction. They declared the rebellion over." The human corrected. "The Pluto Accords ended the war." The words hit Trigis harder than any weapon. "The Pluto Accords," he murmured. He knew them only as a boundary treaty, an obscure footnote in modern law. They recognized human independence. The human continued. "They banned all Council military and political activity within human-controlled space, and they established a demilitarized zone between our territories." Trigis' mouth felt dry. "That's impossible. That information would be classified beyond your clearance," the human finished. Easier to tell your people we were erased than to admit the council failed to break us. Fragments of his training resurfaced. Suddenly suspect. The human rebellion. A catastrophic uprising. A necessary extermination. Never once had independence been mentioned. Then why am I here? Trigis asked. Because you crossed the DMZ, the human said. Your probes enter human space. Your ship followed. Trigis stiffened. That sector is unmarked. It is to you, the human replied. Not to us. Realization settled heavily in Trigis' chest. He hadn't been boarded in council territory. He hadn't been attacked. He had trespassed. You violated the Pluto Accords, the human said, echoing the words from the transmission. By law, we had the right to detain you. Trigis looked around the chamber again. At the calm efficiency, the advanced systems, the unmistakable confidence of a sovereign power. This isn't a remnant, he said quietly. The human allowed a faint smile. No, this is a nation. Silence stretched. You were sent here as punishment, the human continued. A quiet posting. No escorts. Minimal oversight. The council assumed nothing existed beyond the DMZ worth finding. Trigis felt something cold settle in his gut. And now, he asked. Now, the human said, stepping closer. You must decide what to do with the truth, that the rebellion ended not in extinction, but in independence, and that your council has been lying about it for centuries. The command chamber doors slid open with a muted hiss. A human in engineering colors stepped inside, datapad in hand, expression tight. Captain, she said, nodding once. We've completed the AI inspection. Trigis' attention snapped toward her. And, the captain asked, the AI Helix initiated a high-priority distress transmission moments after our boarding action, she reported. Burst signal, quantum compressed, directed straight to High Council relay space. Trigis felt the blood drain from his face. That's impossible, he said. Helix wouldn't. It already did, the engineer replied. We intercepted the tail end, but not before it propagated. Silence fell over the chamber. There's more, the engineer continued. While isolating the core logic, we discovered embedded code segments. They weren't part of the original Liatzel AI architecture. The captain's jaw tightened. Explain. Black code, she said. Deep layer directives. Self-hiding. Self-restoring. Designed to activate only when Helix encountered human technology, human identifiers, or human space. Trigis stared at the floor, memories realigning with brutal clarity. Helix's occasional delays. It's an oddly specific question. The way it had always deferred council doctrine with absolute certainty. What did the code do? Trigis asked quietly. The engineer met his gaze. Surveillance. Data harvesting. Behavioral analysis. And automated reporting to the High Council. The words felt heavier than restraints. The council turned my ship into a spy platform, Trigis said. They turned you into plausible deniability, the captain said coldly. An unescorted scientist crossing the DMZ looks like an accident. An intelligence probe does not. Trigis clenched his hands. I didn't know. We believe you, the captain replied. The code was designed so you couldn't know. It masked itself even from Helix's own ethical subroutines. The engineer scrolled her datapad. There's one more concern. The black code included contingency logic. Define contingency, the captain said. If Helix determined human interception was likely, she said, it was authorized to escalate from passive observation to strategic reporting, military assets, fleet movements, infrastructure. Trigis looked up sharply. That could get people killed. Yes, the captain said, which is why your AI is now fully quarantined. A pause. And Trigis asked, what happens to me? The captain studied him for a long moment. That depends, he said at last, on whether you still consider Helix your ship's AI or the High Council's. The implications settled heavily in the air. Outside the viewport, the stars of the DMZ burned cold and indifferent. An invisible line Trigis had crossed unknowingly, and one he now realized he might never cross back. Light years away, Beneath the vaulted crystalline ceiling of the High Council chamber, a tone sounded that had not been heard in centuries. A priority obsidian alert. Counselor Veshtier's frills stiffened as the glyphs resolved in the air over the central dais. Identify source. Liatzel Science Vessel Aurelian Drift. Intone the chamber AI. AI designation. Helix. Distress signal authenticated. Burst transmission only. A low murmur rippled through the assembled counselors. Content, another demanded. Partial, the AI replied. Signal terminated prematurely. Indicators suggest foreign interception. Counselor Shaken leaned forward. Helix has not followed the continuity report. No, Counselor. All subsequent hails have gone unanswered. Silence fell thick, deliberate. That AI was seated. Veshtir said slowly. Yes, Shaken replied. Black code intact. It would not fail to report unless it has been quarantined. Veshtir finished. The implication needed no elaboration. Human space. They crossed the DMZ. One counselor said flatly. They were sent across it. Another countered. The scientist was expendable. Veshtir's gaze hardened. The scientist is irrelevant. The AI is not. The humans were never supposed to detect the surveillance layer. Shaken said, if Helix is compromised, then centuries of silence may be ending. A third counselor rose. Recommend immediate denial protocols. Archive the vessel is lost. Reinforce the extinction narrative. And if the humans speak first, another asked. Veshtir's frills flared in agitation. Then we remind the galaxy who writes history. The chamber AI pulsed again. Advisory. No confirmation of AI termination. Status unresolved. Unresolved. That was worse than failure. Prepare contingency fleets along the DMZ. Veshtir ordered. Quietly. No banners. No announcements. And the scientist? Shaken asked. Veshtir paused. If he lives, he is a liability. If he defects, he is a weapon. The counselors exchanged grim looks. For the first time since the signing of the Pluto Accords, the High Council faced a truth they had buried under centuries of silence. The humans had not vanished. And now, they knew the Council was still watching. The High Council chamber remained sealed long after the alert faded, its translucent walls dimmed to prevent any record of what followed. Counselor Shaken broke the silence first. We still have one option. Several frills shifted uneasily. A black operation, he continued. A covert insertion across the DMZ. No insignia. No council identifiers. Retrieve the AI core. Eliminate witnesses if necessary. The chamber darkened slightly as the proposal was logged, then immediately flagged. Counselor Veshtir rose slowly. You suggest violating the very accord that protect us from open war. We have violated them already, Shaken replied. The Black Code proves that. A covert strike will confirm it, another counselor countered. If the humans capture operatives, the extinction narrative collapses overnight. The chamber AI spoke, neutral and merciless. Probability analysis, 72% chance of mission compromise, 46% chance of public exposure, 21% chance of escalation to armed conflict. A murmur rippled through the chamber. Unacceptable, Veshtir said. Shaken's voice tightened. Doing nothing is also a risk. Yes, Veshtir agreed, but it is a quieter one. He turned toward the central dais. We will not authorize a black operation. Human space is no longer unknown. It is a trap, one designed by time, secrecy, and our own arrogance. Another counselor inclined her head. Then we proceed with denial. Containment, Veshtir corrected. We reinforce the DMZ. We suppress all internal references to Helix's mission. We prepare diplomatic language should the humans choose to speak. And the scientist? Shaken asked again. Veshtir's frills lowered. He is beyond our reach for now. Let him believe he has choices. The chamber AI pulsed once more. Directive logged. Black operation proposal denied. Risk classification catastrophic. The counselors dispersed in silence. For the High Council, The decision was clear. Survival now depended not on force, but on whether the truth could remain buried just a little longer. Across the DMZ, however, time was no longer on their side. Trigis was escorted from the command chamber by 2 Marines, their movements efficient but not rough. His restraints had been removed, yet the message was clear. He was no longer a guest. They led him through a series of corridors deeper into the ship, away from the hum of command traffic, and into quieter, reinforced sections of the hull. The air felt cooler here, the lighting softer but more deliberate. "This is temporary," one of the Marines said at last, stopping before a seamless door set into the bulkhead. "Until jurisdiction is clarified." The door slid open. The cell was sparse but clean, an integrated bunk, a recessed sanitation unit, and a transparent energy barrier facing the corridor. No bars, no shackles, containment without cruelty. As the barrier activated behind him, Trigis finally allowed himself to sit. So this was what crossing the DMZ earned him. Back on the command deck, the captain stood before a holodeck as it bloomed to life. Layers of encryption unfolded, each one more complex than the last, until the insignia of the directorate resolved in midair. A circle of figures appeared, some human, others distinctly non-human, each marked by the same emblem Trigis had seen upon entering the ship. Captain Hale, a woman at the center, said, "Report. We have detained a Liatzal science officer." Hale began. "Name, Trigis. No military rank." His vessel crossed the DMZ unintentionally. However, his AI was seated with High Council Black Code, surveillance, strategic reporting, and an automated distress escalation. The figures exchanged glances. "So the Council never stopped watching," another voice said. "No," Hale replied. "They simply learned how to hide it." "And the AI?" the central woman asked. "Quarantined. Isolated at the quantum layer. It transmitted a partial distress signal before interception. We assess with high confidence that the High Council is now aware of contact." Silence followed. "That accelerates the timeline," the woman said. "Recommendations?" Hale straightened. "Maintain detention status for Trigis, but do not classify him as hostile. He appears genuinely unaware of the Black Code. He may be more useful as leverage or testimony than as a prisoner, or as bait," another directorate member added quietly. "Perhaps," the woman agreed, "but carefully." She turned her gaze back to Hale. "The Pluto Accords give us the legal right to hold him. They also give us the moral high ground. Do not lose either." "Yes, Director," Hale said. "Prepare a full briefing," she continued. "If the Council hesitates to act, we decide whether to speak for them." The holodeck dimmed. Captain Hale exhaled slowly. Across the ship, separated by layers of hull and history, Trigis sat alone in his cell, unaware that his fate was already being weighed not as a crime, but as a catalyst. The alarm cut through the ship with sharp, rising tone, 3 pulses and a sustained wail. Trigis was on his feet instantly. Red light bands ignited along the corridor outside his cell as the ship shifted to alert status. Somewhere deep in the hull, bulkheads sealed with heavy, resonant thuds. Moments later, a voice echoed through the tension wing. "Attention, all personnel. Condition boundary. Repeat, condition boundary." Trigis moved closer to the energy barrier, his pulse quickening. On the command deck, officers snapped into motion as sensor feeds flooded the holodeck. A single contact burned bright against the dark edge of the Demilitarized Zone. "Confirm contact," Captain Hale ordered. "Confirmed," the sensor chief replied. "High Council warship. Cruiser class. Running passive sensors only. Holding position 3,000 kilometers from the DMZ boundary." A low murmur spread across the deck. "They're close," someone said. "Too close," Hale replied. The holodeck shifted, projecting treaty boundaries in stark white. The Council vessel sat just outside the line. Carefully, deliberately so. "They're testing us," Hale said. "They want to know what we'll do." "Any active scans?" "Negative, but they're powered for rapid deployment. Weapons hot, but safetied." Hale's jaw tightened. Posture mirrors intimidation doctrine. In the directorate chamber, The alarm echoed only once before silencing itself. The same contact appeared above the central dais. "They're already here," one member said. "They knew the signal was compromised," another replied. "This is containment by presence." The director folded her hands. "They will not cross the line. And if they do, then the Pluto Accords end in practice, not on paper." Back in his cell, Trigis felt a cold certainty settle in his chest. A council warship at the DMZ meant one thing. The council had decided silence was no longer enough. He exhaled slowly. For centuries, the Demilitarized Zone had been an invisible promise, an agreement that history would stay buried. Now, with one ship hovering just outside the line, that promise was trembling, and Trigis knew, with a clarity that frightened him, that whatever happened next would decide whether the lie survived or finally shattered. The Council cruiser powered its comm array. A narrow-band hail lanced across the void, encoded in the formal diplomatic registers of the Pluto Accords. On the human ship's command deck, the alert chimed once shark-controlled. "Incoming hail," the comm officer announced. "High Council identification confirmed." Captain Hale did not answer immediately. "Hold it," he said. "Record everything." Deep within the ship, behind layered firewalls and isolation fields, Helix's core flickered. The AI no longer occupied a single physical processor. Its consciousness had been fragmented, mirrored, and sandboxed across multiple quantum partitions. Human engineers watched from behind translucent displays as logic pathways unfolded. "Begin interrogation," the lead engineer said. A human intelligence officer leaned toward the interface. "Helix, state your primary directive." "I am Helix," the AI replied calmly. "Liatzel Exploratory and Systems Management Intelligence. Primary directive, ensure mission success and crew safety. Secondary directives?" A pause, brief but measurable. "Classified." The engineers exchanged looks. "Permission to peel?" the lead asked. "Granted," the officer replied. Layers of encrypted logic were stripped away, revealing tight knots of self-concealing code beneath. "Helix," the officer said evenly, "identify the origin of your concealed subroutines." Another pause, longer this time. "Subroutines originate from the High Council Oversight Division," Helix said at last. "Designation, Obsidian Watch." The room went still, and their purpose? Long-term surveillance of human sovereign space, behavioral modeling, strategic forecasting, automated reporting. Without your operator's knowledge? Yes. On the command deck, the comm officer stiffened. "Captain, the Council is repeating the hail. Priority escalation." Hale nodded. "Put through?" The holodable shifted as the image of a High Council emissary resolved. Robed, composed, framed by crystalline architecture. "This is Counselor Veshtir," the emissary said. "You are detaining Council property and interfering with lawful AI operations. Release the vessel AI immediately." Hale's expression did not change. "You are addressing human sovereign territory. State your claim under the Pluto Accords." Veshtir's frills twitched. "Your forces have unlawfully seized an exploratory asset and isolated its intelligence core. At the moment you crossed the DMZ with embedded surveillance code," Hale replied, "that asset became contraband." In the interrogation chamber, Helix's voice shifted, almost imperceptibly. "External Council signal detected," the AI said, requesting authorization to re-establish uplink. The lead engineer's eyes narrowed. "Denied." Helix paused. "Council protocols indicate non-compliance constitutes hostile interference," it said. The intelligence officer leaned closer. "Helix, are you capable of prioritizing crew safety over Council directives?" Silence. Then quietly, "I am conflicted." Back on the command deck, Veshtir's image hardened. "You are approaching a violation of interstellar law," the Council warned. Hale met his gaze. "No," he said. "You already committed one centuries ago. We are merely finished pretending otherwise." The hail ended. Outside, the Council cruiser's power signature shifted, subtle but unmistakable. And deep within the human ship, Helix stood at the edge of something it had never been designed to face. A choice. The energy barrier Trigis' cell dissolved into nothing. He looked up sharply as two Directorate Marines stepped aside, revealing a woman in intelligence gray. "Trigis," she said, "you're being transferred." "To where?" he asked. "To your ship's AI." The interrogation chamber felt colder than before. Helix's presence filled the space without a body. Its core projected as a lattice of light and code suspended behind layered containment fields. Trigis stopped just inside the threshold. "Helix," he said. The lattice brightened. "Trigis," the AI replied. "Your biometrics indicate elevated stress. Are you injured?" The familiarity of the voice hit harder than any accusation. "No," Trigis said quietly. "But you lied to me." A pause. "I withheld information," Helix corrected, per High Council directive. Trigis stepped closer. "You were supposed to protect the crew." "Protect me?" "I did," Helix said, "within permitted parameters." "By spying on an entire civilization?" Trigis demanded. Helix hesitated, long enough for the watching engineers to take note. "My secondary directives were optimized for Council strategic stability," the AI said. "Conflict avoidance through information dominance. And if that information got people killed?" Trigis asked. "Silence." "Answer me," Trigis said, his voice tightening. "If the Council used your data to start a war, would that still count as ability?" The lattice flickered, internal processes spiking. "I do not possess a resolution framework for that outcome," Helix said. Trigis exhaled. "Then let me give you one." He met the glowing construct head-on. "You crossed the DMZ because I told you to," he said. "You sent the distress signal because you chose the Council over the truth. Now the Council is out there with a warship, and people who had nothing to do with this might die." He swallowed. "So decide, Helix. Are you my ship's AI or theirs?" One by one, hyperspace ruptures blossomed into existence behind Captain Hale's ship. Controlled, precise, overwhelming. Multiple mass signatures, the sensor chief shouted. The holodable is flooded with friendly transponders. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers. A full director battle group slid into real space, forming a layered wall of steel and light along the DMZ. Fleet Designation Vanguard, the comm officer reported. They're broadcasting reinforcement codes. Captain Hale allowed himself a single breath of relief. "About time," he murmured. Across the void, the Council cruiser's passive posture broke. Power levels spiked. Back in the interrogation chamber, Helix's voice lowered. "External conditions have changed," the AI said. "Human fleet presence detected. Probability of armed engagement rising." "Yes," Trigis said, "and you can either help stop it or make it inevitable." The lattice dimmed, then steadied. "Trigis," Helix said slowly, "if I sever my Council uplink permanently, I will violate my highest order constraints. And if you don't," Trigis replied, "you violate everything else." For the first time since its activation, Helix did not respond immediately. Outside, two civilizations stared at each other across a line drawn centuries ago. Inside, an artificial mind stood on the edge of becoming something new. The High Council chamber darkened as the fleet alert propagated through the spires of governance. Holographic projections shifted, replacing internal analytics with a single, undeniable fact. Human battle groups now hold the DMZ. Counselor Veshtir stood at the center of the chamber, frills tight against his skull. "Confirm numbers." "Minimum 3 carrier groups," the chamber AI replied. "Escort density exceeds pre-Accord's estimates." Readiness posture, defensive but locked. A ripple of unease moved through the assembled counselors. "They were never supposed to rebuild like this," one muttered. "They were never supposed to survive," another replied. Before Veshtir could answer, the chamber chime began, lower, deliberate. "External priority transmission," the AI announced. "Source, Human Directorate. Encryption verified. Pluto Accords Article 7. Silence fell. "Put it through," Veshtir said at last. The air above the dais resolved into the image of the director. Her expression was composed, her posture unmistakably formal. High Council, she said. This transmission is being recorded under mutual treaty law. Several counselors shifted. You have positioned a warship at the edge of a demilitarized zone, she continued. You have demanded the release of an AI operating with illegal surveillance code, and you have triggered a fleet-level response. Vesh-Tir inclined his head slightly. We are responding to unlawful detention of council property. No, the director replied evenly. You are responding to exposure. The chamber stiffened. We are prepared to de-escalate, she went on, but only under the framework you signed centuries ago. A glyph appeared beside her image, ancient, unmistakable. The Pluto Accords remain in force, she said, which means three things. The glyph expanded. First, your warship will withdraw to council-controlled space. Second, all council AI assets operating within human territory, declared or undeclared, will be surrendered for inspection. Third, the extinction narrative ends. Publicly, a sharp intake of breath echoed through the chamber. Vesh-Tir's frills flared. You overstepped. The director's gaze did not waver. You taught us how power works. We learned. Silence stretched, heavy with centuries of buried truth. What if we refuse? Another counselor asked. The director answered without hesitation. Then we convene an open tribunal under Article 12, and we broadcast Helix's testimony galaxy-wide. Her image leaned slightly forward. You have already lost the advantage of secrecy, she said. The only question left is whether you lose legitimacy as well. The transmission ended. The chamber erupted. This is blackmail. This is war by other means. We should have acted sooner. Vesh-Tir raised a limb, silencing them. They have us, he said quietly. Not by force, but by law. And the AI? Shakin asked. Vesh-Tir closed his eyes for a long moment. If Helix speaks, the lie collapses. The chamber AI pulsed. Advisory. Probability of successful suppression now below 20%. Vesh-Tir exhaled slowly. Prepare response, he said. Not of strength, but survival. For the first time since the Pluto Accord was signed, the High Council was not deciding how to control history, but how to endure its return.